We're going to begin our look at Economics, Unit 1, an Introduction to Economics. And in Chapter 1, we're going to answer the question, what is economics? Why it's important. How do scarce resources, including time, affect you and everyone around you? How do economists simplify the world to help us better understand it? This chapter will explain what economics is and how it is a part of your daily life. Economics is the study of how individuals, families, businesses, and societies use limited resources to fulfill their unlimited wants. In 1901, people discovered oil in Texas, but they were actually looking for water. Disappointed, they offered to trade the oil for water at a ratio of 1 to 1, 1 barrel of oil for 1 barrel of water. Which is a more primary need, oil or water? What is the difference between a need and a want? Choices. Spending decisions involve choices. Each available choice competes with other available choices. Businesses, like individuals, must make daily decisions about what to produce, when to produce it, and when to stop producing. Societies face choices about how to utilize their resources. The problem of scarcity. All resources are limited. People compete for limited resources. Scarcity exists because people cannot satisfy their every want. Unlike scarcity, shortages are temporary. The factors of production. The factors of production, in other words, what is needed to produce items, would include land or natural resources and their location, labor, the people who do the work, capital, manufactured goods used to make other goods and services, entrepreneurship, the ability to start a new business or create new products, and finally, technology. Although technology is not always included in the factors of production, but some economists include it, and it is the use of science to develop new products and production methods. So those are your 4 factors of production, plus technology as a 5th. And these really are all necessary, particularly land. You have to have the natural resources and the location. You have to have the people who are going to do the work. You have to have capital. Now, the amount of capital may vary depending upon the type of business, but there has to be a capital, some form of capital goods, or money capital to buy those goods. Entrepreneurship. You have to have somebody willing to take the risks. And most businesses do need technology because they have to adapt to modern trends. Scarcity forces people to make choices about how they will use their resources. The effects of these choices may be long-lasting. If you only have enough money to purchase one item, what do you have to give up to make a purchase? Trade-offs. Exchanging one thing for the use of another is called a trade-off. Trade-offs involve opportunity cost, or the loss of one alternative when you choose another. Considering the opportunity cost can help you people to make decisions. This is a look at a production possibilities curve. The production possibilities curve shows the maximum combination of goods and services that can be produced from a given amount of resources. The classic example is military spending versus domestic programs, guns or butter. Using a production possibilities curve, a producer can decide how to use resources. So you can look at this curve and you can see over here along this axis you have the guns in thousands. In other words, your military spending. And over here, butter, or domestic spending, in million quintals, and then what you have here is this curve. So point S would represent a point where there's a balance between, well, actually, not sure what point S represents, but here, each of these points, A, B, C, D, E, and F, represent some mix of what can be produced. And these are maximum combinations of goods and services. Over here at A, everything's in military spending. There's no domestic spending. F represents only military spending. And I mean, are there only domestic spending, no military spending? And these are the combinations that lie in between. Now, if you see point S is in this area that is obtainable. Anything in here, any of these combinations are obtainable. T, on the other hand, lies on the outside. It is not obtainable. Economics is a social science concerned with the ways individuals and nations choose to use their scarce resources. Economists might analyze how the super rich spend their income, for example, and the effect that this spending has on the economy. However, they do not judge whether there should be a social strata of the super rich. So, in other words, what we're saying here is that economists aren't in the business of trying to judge so much right or wrong, but they're looking at cause and effect. There are two major divisions of economics. There's microeconomics, relating to relatively small branches. Micro is the branch of economic theory that deals with behavior and decision making by small units, such as individuals and firms. And then macroeconomics, which is the branch of economic theory dealing with the economy as a whole and decision making by large units such as governments. So when we look at individual consumer spending, we're looking more at microeconomics. When we're looking at, for example, the U.S. government and managing the U.S. economy, that's macroeconomics. Even scientific models that have been accepted for centuries can be discredited. For example, for over 1,500 years, people accepted Ptolemy's model of the universe, in which the Sun and all the other planets revolved around the Earth. What planetary model took its place? Would have it been possible to discredit the Ptolemy model without offering an alternative model to replace it? Economic models. Economic models are theories economists use that are simplified representations of the real world. Models show how people behave economically. When using a model, show basic factors, not every detail. Testing models verifies how accurately the models represent the reality under certain conditions. Models may not always be accurate due to the inability to predict human behavior. If you look at example figure 1.10, you have a graph. Graph A is an example of a model, and graph B is a test of that model. And so you can see here in the model what they predict is the percentage of teenagers that are unemployed. And here's the hourly minimum wage rate. And the prediction is that as the hourly minimum wage rate increases, you see a very steady increase in the number of teenagers unemployed. But when you look at the test of that model, you see that the test doesn't really match with the theory or with the model. So when they test this model, you can see how it is inaccurate. The unemployment rate kind of goes up and down as the hourly minimum wage increases. Schools of economic thought. Economists are influenced by personal opinions, beliefs, and the government under which they live. This leads to different economic theories. Different schools of thought can have an impact on laws and government policies. Judgments about economic policies depend on a person's values. Values are beliefs or characteristics that a person or a group considers important. The science of economics is not used to judge whether a certain policy is good or bad. So once again, here we can see an example of looking at supply and demand for movie videos. So as the price of the movie videos goes up, what happens to the amount of products that the producers are willing to supply? And the answer is that they would go up, which is why the supply curve slopes upward. And that is delineated here by the red line. The blue line is the demand curve. As the price of movie videos goes up, what happens to the amount consumers will demand or want to produce? And you would see that would go down. Chapter 2, Economic Systems and the American Economy. Chapter 2 explains how economic systems answer basic questions about production and distribution of goods and services, how economic systems differ, and what the major characteristics of the U.S. market economy are. You probably set some goals in your life, such as going to college, learning a trade, or opening a business. If you were to compare your personal goals to the goals of a teen living in Argentina or North Korea, the list might vary widely. One of the reasons for this variance is that each of these persons lives in a community or nation with a different economic system, or a way of determining how to use the resources to satisfy people's wants and needs. In this section, you'll learn about the different kinds of economic systems in the world. In 1953, China began to force its farmers into cooperatives of 20 to 30 households. The farmer would own his house, a garden plot, and his personal savings. Just 3 years later, over 88% of China's peasants lived in cooperatives. If you had to make economic decisions cooperatively with a dozen or so of your classmates, how might your economic activities be changed? All economies or all economic systems have to answer three basic economic questions. What goods and services should be produced? How should they be produced? And who will get the goods and services? And how will they be distributed? A traditional economy is based on customs and beliefs that are passed down for generations. A command economy is when the government leaders answer the three basic economic questions. A market/capitalist economy is when individuals make the decisions. And then a mixed economy is a combination of market and command economies. Now in the real world, nearly every economy today is a mixed economy because there are some elements of a command economy and there are elements of a capitalist or market-based economy. Section 2 explains or describes the major components of a market economic system and how they apply to the American free enterprise system. One of the characteristics of a market economy is freedom of choice. A seller can choose to make or not make a product, and you can choose to buy it or not to buy it. One of the characteristics of a market economy is freedom of choice. A seller can choose to make a product, and you can choose whether or not to buy it or not. In this section, you'll learn that a pure market economic system has 6 major characteristics: little or no government control, freedom of enterprise, freedom of choice, private property, the profit incentive, and competition. The famous car manufacturer Henry Ford once said, "Anyone can have any color that they want, as long as it's black." Offering cars of different colors, General Motors surpassed the Ford Company by 1929 and became the world's leading car manufacturer. Was Henry Ford free to sell his cars in only black? Adam Smith described an economic system called capitalism. Pure capitalism can be referred to as a laissez-faire system, meaning let alone, or a system where people and business make economic decisions without government constraints. Smith's ideas influenced the United States' basic economic system. Freedom of enterprise. Individuals can own and control the factors of production. There is no guarantee of success, and governments place some restrictions on businesses to protect the individual. Freedom of choice. People can buy what they want. Demand will determine what is produced. Government sets safety standards, and the government regulates the price in some industries. Profit incentive. People produce goods to make a profit. Money left after the cost of production are paid. The desire to make money is called the profit incentive. There is also a risk of losing money. Private property. Private property is property that is held by individuals or groups rather than the federal, state, or local government. Individuals can control how the property is used. Private property is protected by the United States Constitution. Competition. Different people can produce similar products and services. Competing businesses try to win customers with lower prices or better quality goods or services. Businesses need to use resources efficiently to stay competitive. In the United States, most industries allow anyone to start a new business. Section 3 explains or describes the major goals of the United States economy and the benefits and responsibilities of individuals in a free enterprise system. Nations have values. They set goals for themselves based on those values. The United States is no exception. Its goals are evident in the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, as well as in its government policies and the actions of people like you. In this section, you'll learn how the American economy strives to promote the general welfare. In 1994, only about 39% of the voting age population participated in the federal elections. In 1996, a presidential election year, only 49% participated. Of those who voted in 1996, about 49% cast their votes for Bill Clinton. Therefore, in 1996, only 24% of the voting age population actually voted for the candidate who would become our president. Some people think that the low participation rate was because people were generally satisfied with the economy. Do you think a major economic problem or a recession could result in a higher voter turnout? The goals of free enterprise: to allow individuals to make choices, to use limited resources wisely, to exhibit fairness protected by laws, to provide protection for risks that we cannot control, to reach a stable economy, and to grow and expand the economy. Rights and responsibilities. People have the right to do what they want within the law. People have to behave responsibly in order for the system to work. People are responsible for understanding how government policies affect the economy and to cast their votes accordingly.